You sent me the text.
All right, I will call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone to our Williamsport City Council meeting. It is Thursday, September 18th. We're at Trade Transit 2, third floor. Please rise for the invocation followed by the flag salute. As we gather this evening in service to our community, we ask for your presence to guide our hearts and minds. Grant us the wisdom to listen deeply to one another, the courage to seek understanding across our differences in views and perspectives, and the compassion to work toward healing where it is needed most. In these times of uncertainty and challenge, help us to be instruments of peace. May our deliberations be marked by respect, our decisions by justice, and our actions by love for those we serve. Bless the work before us, that it may serve the common good and strengthen the bonds that unite us as neighbors and fellow citizens. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 3, approval of city council meeting minutes from September 4th, 2025. Is there a motion and a second?
Second, so moved. Both.
You got both of them?
Yeah, I did. I hit both.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions on the minutes? All right, here you see none. Mrs. Frank on item 2.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey.
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Item 4, limited courtesy of the floor. We've had one request, Mr. Huffman, please join the podium. Name and address for the record, and then I believe these are 3 minutes, but we'll work on the timing here. So welcome, sir.
Good evening, Council President Yoder, councilors. My name is Bruce Huffman. I live at 1000 Cherry Street in the city. I just wanted to take a little opportunity to talk about item 12, 537 Market Street. And don't worry, I'm not against the demolition or anything like that. I just want to give a little bit of history on that structure because I really had not known really what it was until I looked a little deeper into it. You probably all realize and remember that it's been Coders Cleaners for nearly 70 years, going back to 1956 when Mayor Coder, actually he wasn't the mayor at the time, but later John Coder, who became mayor, the first mayor under Mayor Council Plan A, form of government that went into effect in 1972. But way, way, way before that, it had been in the Stewart family for nearly 90 years. Charles Stewart was, what I can tell, the first city surveyor / city engineer after Williamsport was chartered as a city in 1866. So he bought the property in 1867. It comprised 2 lots, and the total of that was $750 back in 1867. He seems to have built the house soon after that and shows up in the city directories. And he built it to be his house and office because he was a civil engineer, surveyor, and was surely involved in a lot of projects around the city involving infrastructure, streets, sewers, things like that. And what's very interesting, and I never really knew this, but old maps show that pesky little stream of Williamsport, Graffius Run, ran directly through his property at a diagonal from the northwest corner to the southeast corner. And at the time he lived there, probably until the stream was channeled down Locust Street after 1900, it appears to be an open channel. There was a culvert at Market Street. There was a culvert at Hepburn Street, a culvert at Pine Street, but it seems to have been open. So I'm not going to get into all the specifics of his long history of all the different projects he did around the state, but he was, at the time of his death in 1889, mourned heavily by the city and said his funeral, which was from 537 Market Street, was one of the greatest in its history up to that time. And it's too bad Mr. Scott isn't here. I want to just share just a very brief notice that would have been in the paper at that time, not from his funeral, but prior to that when he was the engineer. The kind of notices they would put in. So this was in 1870. It says notice to contractors. Sealed proposals will be received at the office of the city surveyor on Market Street until Saturday, May 14th at 12 o'clock for the grading of Market Street from the culvert to the top of the hill, which would have been Confusion Corner, 7th Street from Market to Hepburn, and Hepburn Street from the culvert to the top of the hill, and also the paving of the gutters as above stated. The bids will state the price for excavation per cubic yard and the price per square yard for the stone paving, the contractor furnishing the stone, sand, and labor for paving. Bids will be received for any part or all of the work. And it was signed Charles Stewart, city surveyor. So again, I think it's interesting. If you happen to drive by that property, just know that that was the house of the first city engineer in Williamsport. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Huffman. Really appreciate the history and feedback on item 12. Very much so. We'll jump to item 5. We've got a presentation on an update on the strategic management program consulting project from PFM. So I'll turn it over to Gordon to take it from here. I will just say, so like, look, we're going to have another one of these, I think, next month. And I think we've kind of openly talked about the financial challenges we're anticipating. There's going to be maybe some newer things in here that I think we're going to learn about. There's going to be some things that maybe are not, but are going to be maybe difficult to hear. Let's just keep an open mind. Let's just listen. And let's remember that, we're not making decisions here tonight. There's some things we got to digest, but there's a lot of big challenges we need to work through it. It takes a little bit of open-mindedness and thinking outside the box a little bit. So I think Gordon and his team are really well on that way. So let's keep an open mind with what they're bringing forward here tonight.
Thanks, Council President. Nice to see everyone again. Thanks for the opportunity to be with you. Just again, as a reminder who we are and what we're doing, my name is Gordon Mann. I'm from a company called Public Financial Management, which does exactly what its title says. We've been working with the city on what's called a multi-year financial plan. If you think of a city's budget as its revenues and expenses over a 12-month period, this takes that concept and extends it over 5 years. 3 phases to this. By the way, our work is largely funded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania under a grant from what's called the Department of Community and Economic Development. We were here, I guess it's 2 months ago now, in July to present the financial condition assessment, where we talked about what the city's finances look like in a baseline projection. If you don't change revenues and expenses, kind of what's the, if you take your hands off the wheel, where does the car drift? If you don't do anything with the budget, where did the finances go? And that report is public, and not much has changed in that analysis since we presented it. Our next formal presentation actually isn't this one. Our next formal presentation is at the end of our 2nd phase, which is where we come back and talk about what we learned from speaking to the department directors, many of whom I see in the crowd here and their staff today. Where we summarize what we learned about operations. Last time around was very finance and very numerical, very number heavy. That one will be a little more qualitative. But in between that, we wanted to come back and present what we think are the major list of options for closing the deficit. So in terms of, as the council president said, there'll be some things on this list that are not new that we frankly don't need to talk about very much here, because this is just a presentation of what the options are. One of the options is a real estate tax. You don't really need me to explain what that is. Everyone knows what that is. The nature of the deficit that we're trying to close, again, if you're looking at the numbers here, the budget this year is balanced, but it's balanced by use of one-time reserves and some funding from the emergency fund that is not available in perpetuity unless revenues continue to be a lot stronger than they are budgeted this year. When we back that kind of one-time revenue out of the budget, it's about a $4.5 million deficit. Next year, right now, the projection is about a $5 million deficit. I'm hoping that that's too aggressive. We talked the last time we were here about the fact that the city budgets conservatively, budgets its revenues lower than they usually are, budgets its expenses higher than they usually are. And we're hoping that just by virtue of knowing a little more and being a little closer to January 1st of 2026, that number comes down a little, but it won't balance. It's not going to go from $5 million to zero, by hope and waiting. But hopefully it does come down a little bit. You look at the out years, what we are really focused on is we are not trying to solve a $6.4 million deficit in 2030 tonight, or even in this process. What we are trying to do is obviously next year you have to have a budget that balances the 2026 hole. So we need to close that. And we want to close it in such a way by finding solutions that have a recurring benefit so that the thing we do or things we do in 26 also make the hole smaller in 27 and 28. We don't need to balance the 27 budget before the end of this year, but if we make progress and we close the 2026 deficit in a way that's effective, the 2020 deficit should be a lot smaller. Just by virtue of what I'm going to present here tonight, these are the list of the major deficit closing options as we see them. So what is major? Major, as I'm defining it, is anything worth more than $100,000, right? It's in the budget, the budget the size you have, we're not going to close a $5 million deficit by finding 100 things that are worth $20,000. That doesn't mean that we won't have some ideas in the plan that have smaller amounts of benefits. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't talk about things that aren't worth $100,000. And that doesn't mean that we won't recommend some things that don't have a quantified benefit. But we have to close the $5 million deficit. We need big chunks. And these are the options that we see here tonight. Secondarily, there are two things on the list that are not recurring, but for the most part, again, our goal is to come up with something, if it generates revenue, not just revenue for 1 year, but for multiple years. If it cuts expenses or slows their growth, it doesn't just do it for 1 year, but for multiple years. The options get better the farther out you look because the more time you have to do different things. And again, as I said before, right now we're mostly focused on what can you do to close the 2026 deficit in a way that also brings 27 and 28 closer into balance. If you had a chance to look through the presentation, and again, this is a public report, so folks can take their time with it. You can see the revenue options. You can see the expenditure options. One of the things this report should do is emphasize scale. If the city were to lose a police officer and not replace that spot and drop a position through attrition, what is that worth? It's not worth the same thing as a tax increase or the same thing as getting increased payments from Lycoming College. So we wanted to make sure that we give you a sense of magnitude so that we don't try and close a hole that's this big with something that's this big, right? So some of what you see here is to give you a sense of scale. Some of these things are stackable or modified. You could see the 3 levels of real estate tax here that are shown. What does a $0.5 mil generate? What does a 1 mil generate? What is 2 mils? There's nothing magical about those numbers. You could pick any other number or anything in between. But again, we're just trying to show sense of magnitude. Those are on the revenue side. On the expenditure side, again, some similar concepts. I think I said last time when I was here, my educated guess is we would come up with about 8 to 10 things. And if you back out the 2 non-recurring concepts, which we'll talk about, we landed with 10, about 5 on the revenue and 5 on the expenditure side. Again, not the only things that will be in the plan. There are other things that the city can and should do. But right now, our charge is to figure out how we close a $5 million hole. All right. Talk through a few of the revenue options. The first one, perhaps the scale here is news, but the concept is not. The city, as we talked about the last time we were here, does have reserves that it can draw down. You don't want to draw those reserves down to zero. Our estimate right now is that the city going into next year, depending on what happens over the last 5 months of this year, would have about $1.7 million worth of money available that we think could be applied to a deficit. Obviously, once you spend it, it's gone. This is the non-recurring option on the revenue side. And the way I would think about it is, are there initiatives in here? There are. Are there initiatives in here that would take effect in a couple of years where you could buy yourself some time until those things take effect? Again, the way we've come up with this number, city had $7.4 million in cash in its bank accounts, in the ones that would be accessible for operations, so not pension or those sorts of things. But $7.4 million in the operating accounts. We set aside $3.6 million for the emergency reserve, which is split between a payment to the Federal Transit Authority and a payment for your levy. So we're taking that and saying, okay, don't want to use that money. We're taking about $2.1 million, which is our estimate for what the city needs to cover its cash flow needs for the first few months of the year until real estate tax revenue comes in. You'll remember that the very first point we made when I was here last week is that you were in a good place from a cash position, and we don't want to lose that. We don't want you to have to borrow money to keep the lights on. We don't want you to have to do a payday loan or a cash flow loan at the beginning of the year. But once I take those two numbers out, the result isn't zero. There is some amount of money that we believe could be applied to the deficit. This one doesn't really merit much discussion. It's a real estate tax increase. You know what it is. You know how it works. I will tell you that I think it's unlikely. I guess we can test this theory later on, because this is not I'm not going to finish the slides tonight by telling you what I think the magic 8 things are that balance the budget. That's a second and subsequent conversation after I hear input here tonight and from other people. But just very candidly, I don't know how you get to a balanced budget next year without a real estate tax increase. The reason I say that is I don't think you could close a $5 million deficit just by cutting expenses. Keep in mind that if you lay people off, that costs money because of unemployment claims. So to save X million dollars in expenses, you actually have to cut and lay off more than that. I don't think you're going to find $8 million or $7 million or whatever the number would be in expenditure cuts. And the only option you have until you go home rule that generates a meaningful amount of money is real estate tax. So by process of very simple elimination, I don't know what you land at. I don't know for certain that you do land at one, but it's hard for me to mathematically construct a scenario in which you don't have some kind of real estate tax increase next year. That said, if you do a real estate tax increase next year, it might be something that you're actually able to roll back. If you use the reserves, it's not something you can use on a recurring basis. When I talk about buying time for something that has a recurring benefit but will take some time, this is the primary example on the revenue side. It's regionalization. On the expenditure side, we'll talk about that one in a second, but it's home rule. So home rule is a process where you basically create your own local constitution. The benefit of home rule from a financial perspective, from my perspective, is that it gives you flexibility over your earned income tax rate for residents. Right now, you are capped at 1%, which is split with the school district. I think there's some school district people here tonight, and they have a little higher rate, but that's a separate issue. You can't go higher than where you are absent home rule. There are other reasons people go through home rule. They change the number of council seats they have. They switch their form of government. They change zoning things. They do different stuff. You might want to do that. You might not. My focus is purely on the finances. My focus is purely on the earned income tax. If you look at what a 0.5% earned income tax would generate, which would be about $250 a year, it's not nothing. I don't want to pretend that I'm not going to tell you that it's not a sacrifice, but that 0.5% generates about $3 million. The 0.5% increase in the earned income tax is worth as much as a 20% increase in the real estate tax. And the magic or the pro of the earned income tax is income tax revenues grow and real estate tax revenues don't. How do I know? Your real estate tax base here has actually slowly declined each year, not on an enormous basis. I see the school district folks all nodding their head because they live this reality too. It declines by about, 1% a year. Earned income, earnings for people. So this is not Social Security. This is not retirement. This is not disability. This is earned income. Generally in Williamsport, and it grows at about 3%. So if I've got one thing that moves at 3% and another that actually moves slightly backwards, guess which one I'd rather have, right? Again, some of this is not philosophy as much as it is just simple math. If you went a full 1%, so to give you a sense, if you were at 0.5%, that would take you up to, I think your full rate is 1.4, right? Is that right with the school district? Okay, so 0.5% would take you to 2. Who has 2%? I think Carbondale or Hazelton has 2%. If you went to 2.5%, who has 2.5? I think Wilkes-Barre has 2.5%. Yes, there are places that are higher. Reading is 3.1, Chester is 3.5. The place I'm from, Philadelphia, is 3.5. Not talking about any of that, but to give you a sense of, from a revenue perspective, this would be a big move. It is conceivable that you could go home rule, get the ability to do the tax, increase the tax, and eventually reduce the real estate tax. Now, have to close the hole first. Can't make the hole bigger before we make it smaller. But one of the benefits here to the home rules, it gives you a chance to balance between real estate and earned income tax. That's one of the primary benefits. So this all sounds great. What's the downside? Or maybe it sounds great. I don't know. It takes a long time. If I take the amount of time that the process could take, so I assume when it says that the first thing that happens is an election, right? There's the question goes on the ballot whether to form a government study commission. So the first vote isn't, should we change our earned income tax? The first vote is, should we study the thing that would allow us to potentially change the earned income tax? So it's government, so it's multiple steps, not surprisingly. So the first vote would be, do we form the government study commission? And people have to run for it. Someone actually has to circulate petitions. It's a nonpartisan election. The Republican or the Democratic Party doesn't put up 5, 7, 9 people, but it is an elected position. You actually have to run for it. You can't be appointed to it. Once that happens, they convene the group, and that group has, I think, a maximum of, let's see, what is it? 9 months to decide whether to go down the home rule path or not, where they are basically evaluating government. They don't have to take 9 months, but they have 9 months. Then after that, if they decide to do the home rule charter, they have, I think it's 18 months from the election to write the charter, to be the constitutional convention. They don't have to take 18 months, but they have that under the law. And you sort of get the idea here. If you just play this out and you say, let's assume everybody takes the exact maximum amount of time to go through home rule, you end up with a charter sometime probably in 2028, early 28, which means the earned income tax takes effect in 29. A more likely scenario is you don't really need 18 months to write a document, to write the charter. And there are lots of communities that have moved faster than that. There are some that are slower, but there are lots that have moved faster than that. And the reality is you probably could get to the earned income tax flexibility by 2028 instead of 29. That's a long time from that, right? It's not, there are lots of things that would have to happen along the way. And again, the financial benefit is significant. But if we're trying to find things that close the gap in a major way, not just next year or over the course, but over the course of time, this one moves to the top of the list. Some smaller things, increased payments in terms of increased payments in lieu of taxes. I don't have the phone number of the president of LICO or Penn College or the hospital. All I know is what the math tells me, which was a few years ago, that you were getting about $474,000. I've seen the list of places that were contributing. That's pretty much it. There's a few other smaller ones on the list. And I know you're at 210 now. So 2022 isn't 50 years ago, it's 4 years ago. So that suggests, well, it's 3 years ago right now. But that suggests to me that there is the possibility to do more here and to get more. And the math tells me that this wouldn't close your $4 million deficit. They're not going to send you a check for $4 million, but there is the ability to do something here that is meaningful. Other recurring options, I don't think the treasurer is here, but one of the ideas that I know he's championed and talked to you a bunch about is tripling the local services tax. That would be great. I also liked that idea when we brought it up in 2005. So will it happen? Maybe. Can you balance your budget on it? No. Is it a good idea? Yes. So it is on the list. But yes, this is something PFM actually advocated for all the way back when Pittsburgh went into Act 47 oversight in 2005. We liked the idea then, and 20 years later, we still do. Diligent collection of taxes. I'm sure your treasurer could speak at length about this. The bottom line here is there is an opportunity, I think, to generate some additional revenue. That's one time. It's not I squeeze the orange and then I squeeze it further and then I crush it and then I squeeze it even more. It's a one-time squeeze that's worth a couple of $100,000. And you are in a position where it's not about picking on people. It's about making sure that people pay their fair share and that you collect what's owed to you. All right. If this has been boring so far, perhaps it gets a little more exciting now. What about selling City Hall? Not on the list for us from a revenue closing perspective, but is it on the list in a different perspective? So there are lots of different ways you could think about City Hall, and probably most of them are running through your head right now. From a historical preservation perspective, from an operations perspective, from a community development perspective. I come from public financial management, so you can guess which perspective I'm going to show. I would not sell City Hall and generate the number that we've seen is around $500,000 and try and close my deficit that way. I think selling that asset and getting $500,000 and using it to keep your lights on for an extra month is a pretty unsatisfactory use of that resource, right? At the same time, I also would not hold on to that building. It costs you money from a maintenance perspective. It costs you money from a capital perspective if the roof falls in or 10 other things happen to it. And it's not a well-utilized resource. I wouldn't sell it and knock it down and turn it into a parking lot or a Turkey Hill or whatever. Nothing against Turkey Hill. I guess this is a little less financial than economic development. But if there is a way for you to thread the needle to put this back into productive use, to maintain its historical value, and to shed the expenditure liability, which is really what I'm focused on from a financial perspective, that would be, to me, from a financial perspective, very, very attractive. Okay, well, great. Where do our police department go? Where do you stay in the building next right now? My assessment from having walked through the building, I'm not a structural engineer, but it looks like it would cost a significant amount of money to get it to be back to the point where you could put people in it. And you don't have it, right? You had a $4.5 million deficit, and that tells me that I don't know when you're going to get there. So that doesn't mean we say, gee, too bad for everybody. I hope the police don't mind working at 5, places, some of which really need to be renovated, and just leave them there. What that says to me is that that building is not going to become an option in the near term. By the time it gets there, whenever that is, you're going to have to probably move faster than this, which means we need to get you to the point where you could go back out into the market. There are certain types of capital things that you can buy, a cop car, a computer, or whatever with cash. You're not going to buy a police station or a fire station with cash. You're going to have to borrow to do that, which means you're going to have to be able to get out into the market to do that. So our kind of order of operations from, again, a financial perspective, which is just one, would be one, shed the liability and the risk, put the City Hall back into a productive use. And you have, one of the things I love about coming here is you have a history of doing that. I don't know what the sell is, but I'm guessing it's not what it used to be built for. You have a history of taking historical buildings and turning them into cool things, and it adds to the vibe here that I don't see when I go to Reading or Allentown or, I mean, frankly, even parts of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. That tells me that there seems to be, again, I'm not a developer, but there seems to be a market to do that type of move here. Then I would focus on getting my finances solid, and then I would focus on the police department. I'm not trying to dismiss what the other operational needs are, but the police are operating out of 5 different facilities, some of which have very significant needs. That would be at the very top of my capital to-do list, but we have to get you to a point where you're able to afford to do the types of things they need. Let's move to the expenditure side. The twin brother of you could spend down your reserves is you could reduce your spending on capital. I wouldn't reduce it to 0. I wouldn't reduce it for a long period of time. But if we're thinking about things you could do for a year to try and buy yourself enough time for something else to take effect, yeah, this one's on the list. Why? When I look at the list of expenditures for the city and I back out everything that's personnel related, there's a whole lot of slides here on personnel, so we'll get to that. I am left with about 12 lines that are $100,000 or more. That includes your workers' comp, which you're not going to get rid of. Your liability insurance, which you're not going to get rid of. Your auditors, which you will spend less on eventually, but you're not going to get rid of. About a quarter of what's left are the 3 lines or the 4 lines that are for the police, the fire, streets, traffic control, and parks. You heard me say this, and this will be in our plan, and you will not see us say, well, let's close $1 million of the deficit or 760 by just not doing capital anymore. You need to do capital. You need to do more than $760,000. And that's without taking account for the police station. But again, if we're trying to find ways to buy time for a bigger picture things to take effect, it's on the list. What else is? So again, you don't really need me to explain how position cuts via attrition work. Not layoffs. Layoffs are hard and they are expensive. But as you have people who leave positions, this just gives you a sense for what they're worth. I know the numbers are blurry. A police officer position that's not filled is worth about $107,000. A firefighter that's not filled is worth about the same amount. A truck driver and a laborer are worth about $75,000 each. So you could start to do the math in your head and say, well, if I through attrition drop down 1 or 2 here or 1 or 2 there, this is what it's worth. To be very clear, this is not an operations recommendation where we're saying, gee, I think you ought to just cut staff. This is a financial recommendation where we're saying we need to buy time for something to take effect. You could think of this as the cousin of the real estate tax increase. If home rule buys me some time to get to a point where, or if the real estate tax buys me some time to get to a point where home rule does more for revenues and then maybe reverse it, same thing here for attrition. Maybe attrition buys you some time to do something different either on the revenue or expenditure side until you can bring that staffing level back to where you want it to be. What about public safety positions? If we cut police and fire, doesn't that just hit overtime? Yeah, but not in a direct causal way. Definitely police and fire, their overtime usage is connected to staffing. There's no question about that. But there is seldom in most places a direct, if I lose one person, overtime automatically increases, or if I hire one person, overtime automatically decreases. Lots of different things drive overtime. Our next meeting is going to talk more about the operations, so we'll get more into police and fire. But how do I know they're not related? Because they haven't been in the past. If I look at that bottom table, is the change in headcount for police on a budgeted level. I don't know exactly when the positions are filled, but overtime spending is actually higher with more officers, not lower. That's not a complaint. That's not a criticism. There could be 10 other things that drive overtime, and that might be exactly the right thing to do. But what that tells me is that adding a police officer doesn't cut overtime automatically, and dropping one probably doesn't do the opposite. I don't think you really need me to explain smaller wage increases other than perhaps the ideal pattern. Yes, you could do a wage freeze and it actually has savings over a course of time because every future wage increase gets added to a lower bonus. But the better way, rather than having people just take a zero, which is also extremely unlikely with collective bargaining and not something you could do unilaterally anyway. 87% of your employees are in a union. So if you wanted to just do it yourself, you would impact, I don't know, 20 people, whatever it is, about 13% of your workforce. But what is remember that our baseline projection has 3 to 3.5% wage increases every year. Why? Well, because that's what you're doing. That's what the recent wage increases are. If those wage increases came down to 2, you could see the upfront savings in that bottom scenario. It's $294,000. It's worth about the same as the pilot payment. But look what it does over time. In 5 years, it's $1 million. That's not 5 years of wage freeze. That's 5 years of people getting a little smaller wage increase. This is why we focus on not just cutting costs, which is I spent $10 this year and next year I spend 0, but controlling cost growth, which is my $10 was going to grow to 20 and now it grows to 15 instead. Health insurance savings, 3 basic ways to reduce your health insurance costs. The first is you change what type of plan people have. Acronym, this is going to sound like, alphabet soup here, but HMOs and PPOs to high deductible health plans, which are not uncommon in the public sector, even if they are in Pennsylvania. That's a change in the health plan. Has to be negotiated. All of these things do. Just want to acknowledge that up front. Change the plan design. What do you pay when you go to the doctor? Your co-insurance, your deductibles. This is not terribly exciting stuff, but that's another way to reduce the plan cost. The third way, and the way that's easiest for us to calculate, is employees through their paycheck, what's called a premium contribution, contribute more. Your contributions here are really low. Even from a Northeast Pennsylvania is always lower than everyone else's perspective. You're even low on that list. Might be reasons, lots of good reasons to do so. The typical story is our wages are low, so we balance them this way. But if you have, You have a lot of room that you could come up before you get close to the national average. The national average, which I understand is not just Williamsport, it's also not just public sector, but the national average is about $53 every 2 weeks, or 16% of your health insurance costs, or $242 every 2 weeks, or 25% of your family coverage. You are at $20 and 1 to 3%. So not close. Again, can't do it right away. Your health insurance costs are actually growing at an incredibly low rate. You're doing a good job managing the costs. But this is an area where if you can ratchet them down and you think of it this way, I got to get whatever the number is. Let's pick one here. $300,000 in personnel savings. I could do that by not filling 2 cops and a firefighter, or 2 firefighters and a cop, or by having people contribute 5% of towards their health insurance instead of 0. Obviously, you can't make that decision yourself, but from a policy perspective and an operation perspective, seems pretty easy. So this is the big one on the expenditure side. We don't often focus on regionalization, but I think you have a real opportunity here to do so, and largely because of those 2 gentlemen over there and the conversations that they have been having with South Williamsport and Loyalsock. You seem to have some real momentum here to do something with the other big fire departments in town, and that is, or in the area, and that is really, really unusual. Regional fire departments, like there's one in York. You know who's not in the York area regional fire department? York itself, the city, is not in it. It is a bunch of small towns around it, and the city doesn't really want anything to do with it. The fact that you have an opportunity to perhaps lead here with the communities that have the most resources and the highest needs is really exciting from a conceptual standpoint, right? So I'm going to start with that. The way I would think about this, and we will talk with the finance director, we've already heard a little bit from the chief, so we will dig more into this, is we have to think about regionalization from a cost reduction standpoint, not a revenue generation standpoint. Well, what's the difference? Well, if I add 2 firefighters and they cost me $100,000 each, and Loyalsock or some town pays me $200,000 each, I've netted nothing. I've added $200,000, 2 guys at 100 each, and I've got $200,000 as revenue neutral. Still might be worth doing for other reasons, but it didn't save me anything. It didn't help me close that $5 million hole. What helps me close the $5 million hole, if there are costs and if there are resources that right now are being paid solely by the city, where you can span those out. So maybe it's the chief or the fire chief or the fire marshal or other prevention programs, something that would stretch those costs out, that would distribute those over a wider base. When we do dig in and look at some of the concepts that are on the table now, this is what we'll look for. Again, it's not about adding number next to the revenue, it's about reducing the net cost. But the fact that you even have this opportunity, I have a question mark next to this one. I don't know if it could go as fast as 2026. I know there are people who would be eager to see it happen that fast, but that's why it has the question mark next to it. But this is something that I think on the expenditure side has a lot of promise. What about outsourcing? It's usually it's every consultant's favorite way to save money. The answer to that is it depends. You potentially could save money by outsourcing, but I did not look at anything I did not see anything in your expenses where I went, wow, they're wildly overpaying for that. I bet the private sector could do it for at least $100,000 less. That doesn't mean that the private sector couldn't do it for less. That just means I don't know. Remember, when you outsource, you don't go from whatever you're spending to 0. You go from whatever you're spending on your own employees to whatever you're going to spend on someone else. So whether you get savings or not depends on what's your market. Is there somebody else in the market, or ideally a number of somebody else's in the market, so they'll compete with each other and drive their own price down? Do they provide a comparable level of service? All of that said, we have heard talk about, and we were asked to think about, and we will evaluate the concept of outsourcing from the code enforcement department, outsourcing functions of that. You may want to do it for quality of service or for adding subject matter expertise. All of those are good reasons to do it. I'm just saying it doesn't close the $5 million deficit on its own. So there are good reasons to look at outsourcing. Maybe you're bringing in someone with more capacity. Maybe you're bringing in someone with more expertise. Maybe you're just concerned about quality of service. But outsourcing doesn't magically cut costs. 2 closing thoughts, and what has been a long presentation. I apologize to the school district and the other folks who are here waiting. The best deficit closing option is not on that list at all. The best deficit closing option is your tax base actually grows. And I mean something very specific. I don't mean Amazon moves to town and they have 50 engineers, or someone launches a new business out of an incubator. When I say economic growth, it's because Pennsylvania only allows you to tax specific things. I mean two specific things. Your assessed value of taxable property grows, which is hard in Pennsylvania because reassessments are really, really uncommon. I think you'll go through your first in a long time in a couple of years. And then after that, your probably next one will be decades from now, right? If it continues to follow Pennsylvania patterns. And this is something that residents don't always grasp. Your home may grow in value. It does not change what it's worth on the tax rolls because it is frozen at a point in time. The way you get assessed value from a real estate tax perspective to grow is you build something new. Or, because you're not in a big giant greenfield with tons of open space here, you take something that's vacant or underutilized, you knock it down and you turn it into something more productive. So if one of the best ways to close your deficit is to grow the tax base, what are the things that Williamsport as a whole, not just the people in this room, even including the school district, what are the things that Williamsport as a whole can do to incentivize that type of construction? And again, it's a very specific thing. It is not incentivizing people to put decks on their houses. It is not incentivizing people to put pools in their yards or to do facade improvements, because that does not, you might want to do all those things, but it's not going to help you financially because it's about assessed value if we're talking about closing deficits. Your second thing is the earned income tax. How does the earned income tax base grow? It grows by the people who live here, not work here, live here, their earnings going up. What do you mean? What about the people who work here? The people who work here pay $52 a year. It's the local services tax. It's $1 a week. And that's what it is until it gets tripled, or if that ever happens. Your tax base is not the people who drive into town and leave. Unfortunately, it'd be great if it was, and even home rule doesn't fix that. Your tax base is the people who live here, even if they drive out and work somewhere else. So what are the things that Williamsport, again, not just the people in this room, but what are the things that Williamsport can do to increase resident income? One of them, and one of the plays that other cities have had, we're doing this plan, and we're doing one in Easton, Pennsylvania, small city of about the same size, right on the border of Pennsylvania and New Jersey. They have gotten to the point where they, partially just by dint of being close to New York City, so that's an advantage they have made themselves attractive enough where they're building large condominiums that with higher income. And it has taken their earned income tax growth to 10, 11, 12, 15% a year. Now, that's not some magic thing that no one ever thought of. You have to have the demand and lots of other things for doing that. But that is what's grows tax base in Easton, not a law firm moving to town with 50 lawyers. Because guess what? Those people probably don't live here and they all pay their taxes somewhere else. Pennsylvania rewards residency. So that's the thing to focus on from a tax base perspective. We will be back. Yes, I did change it. Hopefully, if you have us on October 16th to do the second presentation, the second formal presentation, this was kind of a bonus one because we wanted to put the ideas out there. And then we'll be back sometime after that, where we take the concepts that are here and any others that come up, and we say, okay, this is how we would fit the blocks together to try and close the deficit. But that's where we are in the process.
All right. Thank you very much. Super insightful. A lot of great information. I think a lot of great insight into kind of where the direction that this is going, notably as we talk and start thinking about 2026 budget here in what, 6 weeks, roughly.
Yeah.
Any comments from members or questions from members, mayor, administration as well? I mean, a couple of things stick out to me, and this is nothing that's going to fix this for 2026, right? But I mean, when you think about economic development, I could be wrong here, but the thing that has seemed to continually be missing to me from not only the city, but I even do think just regionally, is just the focus on our existing infrastructure, and really trying to enable our existing businesses to help grow. I feel like there's a lot of unharvested fruit from that perspective that, when we start looking at 2026 and beyond, well, what do we need to do from a city perspective to maybe enable that kind of stuff? How does that correlate with changing the population trends of the city? I mean, that's the core of this, right? If we had
Right.
growing population, we'd have a much different conversation here tonight,
You would.
right?
Correct.
And frankly, big part of why we're seeing some of the narrative with the county right now and their financial challenges as well. It's the
Oh, no
exact
question.
same thing.
Yep.
It's a regional issue. It's not just here. So, just some thoughts from that perspective. And then again, we've kind of beat this drum a number of times the past couple of years, but you want a good case study as to why there's some significant reforms from Harrisburg that are needed. You just look at the tax differences between property taxes and home rule. The system's awful, right? And I mean, I'll be honest, I've had a few residents that have approached me since we did that work session earlier in the year. As they start, thinking about home rule, they're like, you know what? From a revenue perspective, I kind of get it. I'd much rather, have a little bit more on my income, notably if we can hold and or even get to a point where we can lessen the burden on the property tax side. I mean, because essentially what this is doing is it's growing the base and spreading it over a much wider margin, which is just good fiscal sense. It's a lot fairer. It's a lot easier of a burden to share compared to what we currently live now. So, I mean, nothing's going to happen. They can't even pass a budget. And that's a bipartisan issue. That's
Sure.
not me, calling out, Democrats. That's Republicans have as much skin in that game as well. Right. So,
Sure.
But nonetheless, if there's ever, if any of them are listening or see this, I mean, for goodness sake, like it just makes so much sense on so many levels. And it doesn't even have to be about doing a home rule. Look at the system, right? It's just not aligned to meet our needs, but it's not just us. There's many municipalities that have explored home rule. There's many other cities that have not only gone through this process, but are in a lot similar positions that we are and have been before we were, frankly. So a couple of things that stick out to me that are, I think, a little eye-opening for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned Easton. Easton was using a distressed pension tax, got their pension plans to a point where they didn't need to do that, and just traded because they had home rule.
Yep.
So the tax rate did not change at all.
Yeah.
But it kept about a couple $1 million in their system. Home rule is, unfortunately, it should not be. You should have the flexibility to do this without doing all this, right? When paying me to come to town or having a grant to have me come to town to talk about it. You should just have the ability to do that, but you don't right now.
Yeah, certainly. And then the third thing I'll say, I mean, look, I'll state the obvious here and I'll stick my neck out for whatever it's worth. As I go through this presentation and I start doing the math, Gordon, I kind of agree with your assessment. I logically, sitting here today, I don't know how we pass a budget without increasing taxes to some degree, right? It's really a question of what's the consensus we can find and how can we manage the burden as much on our residents? And that's real. We've got a lot of residents in the city that are up against the wall financially with tax rates as they already are. Ours are already some of the highest in the county. It makes us less competitive in an environment where we're trying to attract residents. I see our school superintendent nodding his head. I understand and think he feels the exact same thing and thinks the exact same things I do. The system doesn't keep up, right? We're doing the best that we can, I think, to manage through and balance the need for unique services in the city and managing the tax burden and revenue burden on our residents, but it's tough. So I don't see how we don't do it. I hope we can minimize how much it is. But let's see where it goes. So any other questions, comments from members? Mr. Mackey, please.
Just thank you very much for this presentation. I mean, I've had a chance to read this report when you sent it to us, but hearing you explain it really drives home a lot of these options for me. I mean, I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but I will be interested. And I know we spoke a little bit before the meeting, when we start getting into the police and the fire and, you say not replacing people who retire, that sort of thing. Like, what does that actually look like? And when we start talking about salaries and replacing those folks, what does that look like?
Yeah.
You know, I've continually said, I mean, not publicly, but behind the scenes, like it seems to me that when you start talking about leadership positions, specifically within the police and the fire, that at some point there's got to be a top step, right? And hypothetically now,
Yeah.
the way our system is working, our chief of police, whoever that may be, or fire chief, they could be making 120, 130, 140, $150,000 a year. And then, you know, in the next 20 years, you know, it's just not sustainable.
Sure.
So I would be interested to know, you know, some sort of tiered, and maybe that's not the right word, but how do we address that issue if that's something that you're going to look into?
Yeah, so we can talk about salaries that for your non-union folks. The answer is it largely lies between two things to control the salaries. What you agree to through your budget and what the market dictates through what you have to pay to get the person you want. That second part is hard for me to gauge because we don't hire police or fire chiefs in Lycoming County. But your point about needing to keep the compensation at a level that's sustainable is a good one. The good news is, again, is that one you really do have the ability to do. If we were talking about, gee, I want to change the top step for a police or a firefighter, okay, that's got to go through collective bargaining.
Right. And then, yeah, of course, you know, you mentioned City Hall. I'm not gonna. But again, we just had a study, right, which outlines the cost of what it would take to get City Hall back to a point where we could even consider moving back into it. That study has come and gone. I'm just kind of saying that it's been a while since we've talked about City Hall. I don't know why that is. I know it's an unpopular topic, but we're heading into winter here again, and we will now once again be paying to heat that place. So yeah, it is something that we need to discuss, and we need to discuss it soon, and we need to make a decision. It's time to make a decision about City Hall, and that's all I will say about that. But thank you again for coming. I really look forward to the information we get from this next round of
Yep.
interviews that you're going to do.
Almost a month, yeah, a little less.
And I think, again, just to kind of drive home your point, Adam, we need to be able to have these type of conversations without hard feelings, without people getting worked up, because we are all residents of the city ourselves, right? I don't want to see my property taxes go up. Nobody does, but we need to be able to have all of these conversations, whether it's about staffing or restructuring the leadership of certain departments, getting rid of certain departments. Like, we need to be able to have these conversations and not get sidetracked by hard feelings. I understand there will probably be hard feelings. I understand there probably are currently hard feelings, but we need to be able to move past those and have open and honest conversations with each other. So I appreciate you saying that. So yeah, I think it's just important, because we're all in the same boat here, right? We're all going down the same river. So
Thank you. Any other questions, Ms. Mealy?
No, no questions particularly. Thank you.
You want to pull that up? Yeah, sorry.
I don't like to enunciate clearly. No questions particularly, although thank you for an excellent presentation and for really underlining, I think, the impact that home rule could have on us as a municipality, and just the huge gap between property tax revenue and income tax revenue here in the city, which while I had understood it to be a gap before, I had not perhaps understood the scale of the gap.
Yeah, it's striking.
And so that was very helpful. The point I actually wanted to make was in response to John's point about the difficult discussions ahead. I think the other important thing to remember is that it is every resident of the city has obviously strong feelings about X, Y, or Z move that we may make. And the fact that we will eventually have to make our our decisions based on what we think is the best thing for the city and its residents.
Mhm.
You know, um, it may mean that there are people who don't agree with us, and it may mean in the long run, it is amazing to me the number of decisions I have made as a council member that subsequently I looked back and said, was that the best decision? But in the end, we make the best decisions that we have with the information that we have at the time. And what the reason that I am, I won't say excited, but at least interested in watching how the budget process unfolds this year is because I feel as though the information we've gotten from PFM is going to lead to us making what I feel are better decisions, what I hope are better decisions
Yeah.
for the future of the city.
That's our goal.
that
We're
we've
not going to make
perhaps
them
been
easier,
able-
unfortunately.
Right, and I'm aware of that, but I think these are hard decisions and we all need perhaps to respect the fact that we can come at these decisions and arrive at different conclusions in much the same way that we're doing that all over the place right now, but.
Let me put it this way. So like the worst part of this job is budget season. And no, and I mean that it's because we have to do some difficult, hard things. We all feel the pain, right? And most importantly, the seven of us recognize the immediate impact that this has on every resident, right? It's hard. It's why I'm a lot grayer than I was 6 years ago. I mean, it's the truth, right? We do this really because we love it. Okay. I feel as good going into a budget, at least from an information perspective, that I've felt since I've been on council. I don't feel good about the decisions we have to make, but I feel good that we are in as good of a position as we have ever been, at least on my time on council, to make those decisions because of the data we've got in front of us. So to your point, Liz,
Right. That's, yeah.
any other comments, questions, Mr. Allison?
Yeah, I just have one comment. Although I'm grateful as everyone else is for the excellent presentation we got. I think there's also one thing that I personally recognize, I may be wrong, but that Pennsylvania has some archaic structural problems as a state in not advancing with the way other states have. And there's a reluctance, there's a parochialism that runs strong in the state that blocks certain things from happening. And I think long term, somehow that needs to be addressed. Although when we have a legislature that has trouble getting a budget passed, not just once or twice, but I serve on one of the local community institutions, a nonprofit, STEP Inc., and I'm on that board to the end of this year. And you see the effect that has on the people, not just the people that work there, but the people that are, more importantly, the people that are served by an organization like that, which is they're the ones that reach out and help those that are in need throughout our community, and not just a handout, but help them grow in their own in their own being, but also financially and every other way. So I'm just, I guess I don't want to be negative, but I think long term that needs to be addressed somehow, what's going on within our state. Hopefully we can get there someday.
Here.
That didn't sound very hopeful, right?
Me?
I said that didn't sound very hopeful.
Any other comments, questions on the presentation? All right. Gordon, thank you very much.
Sure.
Really appreciate it. Really appreciate the work that you and the team are doing in this process. It continues to be impressive, and thorough, and really grateful to be partnering with you. I'll look forward to the management review on October 16th, I think is what you were
Yes.
shooting for, right?
Yep, we'll see you in about a month and some of you before that.
Look forward to it. That sounds great. Let us know what you need from us between now and the 16th.
Good.
We'll be looking forward to it.
Thank you.
All right. Let's continue on. We're gonna jump around here a little bit. Let's jump to item 7, Mrs. Frank.
Resolution minimal municipal obligation, excuse me, obligation for 2026. The agenda says 25, but it should be 26.
Is there a motion and a second?
So move. Second.
Jamie, good evening.
Good evening, council. Is Gabrielle on the phone? Okay, all right. The resolution you have before you tonight is to adopt the minimum municipal obligation for 2026. This year's obligation for the fire pension fund is $1,773,161. The police pension fund is $2,028,978, and officer employees pension fund is $595,233. I do have Gabrielle from what used to be Mock and Hop, which is now Acusure, on the phone. If you guys have any questions about the calculation of the MMO.
All right. Any questions on the resolution? Any questions for Acrisure? Ms. Mealy?
Which valuation are we using? Are we still using 2021 or is this based on 23 at this point?
I believe 23, Gabrielle, is that correct?
That is correct. The 26 MMOs currently are, those numbers that you see in front of you are based off the 1123 valuations.
Okay, and 1125 won't kick in until basically 28, right?
The 1125 valuations are in process. They will kick in for 2027.
Okay, so I guess partly what I'm asking is we've seen an increase, but a relatively minimal increase this year in our MMO.
Correct.
That we're excited about any increase in the MMO, which is already pretty massive, but what is the outlook moving forward? It seems to me like 23 should have been an improvement over 21, right?
23 was an improvement on some of the plans over 21, on a couple of the plans over 21. 2025, we've been seeing, because you use a smooth method on the actuarial value of assets, we've seen some losses on the investment return. So there is a chance that the MMOs may increase, but I'm not certain until we actually complete the valuations to give you a set in stone projection.
Got it. Just trying to understand, given that we've just spent probably near about an hour.
Right.
Picture for 26, trying to understand the depth of the difference between the 26 and 27 valuation. So currently it looks as though we're likely to see a larger MMO increase moving into 27.
Most likely.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions by members? Okay. Here you see none, Mrs. Frank, item 7.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes,
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Let's jump down to item 10. We have a land development for Williamsport Area School District Athletic Complex. Is there a motion and a second?
So move.
Motion and a second, Mr. Nar. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, President Yoder and members of council. What I bring before you tonight is a land development request from Williamsport Area School District for renovations to the athletic field, which is located at 2990 West 4th Street. The current land use is the current Williamsport Area High School as well as athletic complex. It is located within the R2 zoning district. The proposed plan is for athletic and stadium improvements, including 11,500 square foot field house, bathroom, concession building, and a 65,000 square foot tennis court facility. The project also includes a parking area and driveway with stormwater facilities. It includes relocating the ADA parking closer to the new seating area. In addition, the walkway between the parking lot will be paved and widened for ADA compliance. In addition, the tennis courts will be replaced basketball courts removed and replaced with tennis storage buildings and pickleball courts. In addition, on the west side of Millionaire Lane, the plan will be replaced by ticket booth, that will be replacing the ticket booth, concession building, and restrooms with new buildings. The press box will be replaced. The existing locker rooms will be replaced with a field house. The west side of the track concession stand will be replaced with an accessory structure. In addition, the unfinished parking, storage buildings, and 3 sheds will be replaced with a paved parking area. In addition, the plan was reviewed by the city engineer, Eric Smithgall of the Stormwater Authority. The plan was also reviewed by Lycoming County Planning. You do have their comments. It was reviewed by the city planning. Since that, you do have plans in front of you. They had requested some modifications and changes. We did get that to the Stormwater Authority because that was the crucial part of it. The other changes that they are requesting for the land development plan is, let me see here. The tennis courts they are proposing a bituminous concrete pave throughout in lieu of the pervious pavers. So obviously it was reviewed quickly by Eric Smithgall and city engineer and myself. The tennis storage building will be split into 2 smaller buildings. One will house for tennis and one will be for pickleball in lieu of the building. The concrete tier bench seating will be reduced and no longer proposed in front of the pickleball courts. At the upper stadium, the existing crosswalk was modified to a speed table and the entry stairs and ramp were combined into one. The press box was revised because it'll be a 2-story with a stairway on the outsides of the facility. At the lower stadium, the field house footprint was adjusted slightly to account for a 2nd-story building. Square footage and adjustments from 11,573 square feet to 12,102 square feet. Also proposed a 2nd water service actually in the field house. So these were the minor changes. We do not feel it's necessary to go back through the whole process of planning and Lycoming County Planning. It was reviewed by Stormwater and that was a crucial thing. The changes will be addressed during what we call the building and permit phase of the process. I do have representatives here that can answer any questions and I believe they would like to do a small presentation.
Come on up. I think you can probably fit that right behind there and I think the camera would catch it. Yeah.
My name's Eric Seacrest. I'm with Lucas Civil, with a civil engineer representing the school district through this land development process. So Gary gave you a pretty good overview about the entirety of the project there. Essentially what we're doing is the tennis courts, they're existing now, the basketball courts are all going to be replaced. Pretty much in kind with the location of the existing courts. Like he said, the initial plans had this plaza area with pervious pavers, so we switched this. It's all going to be a mix of bituminous surfacing with concrete. 2 new storage buildings for the tennis and pickleball. A mill and overlay of all this parking area. They'll have concrete tiered seating overlooking the tennis court center. He said the upper portion of the stadium is getting all new entryway. So instead of the 2 ticket booths on either end, we're consolidating everything in the center. So there'll be a small staircase and ramp entering the ticket gate booth area here, and then a new press box. Down below, like you said, we are adding the additional field house and concessions down here. Right now, the team has no real locker room area down here. So this building is going to be a 2-story building. It will have the team rooms, the concession stands, restrooms upstairs. Facilities will consist of team film rooms. They're planning for some golf simulators, kind of a mixed use area. Existing storage shed located here. It's just a new one's being relocated to this area, and then this whole lower area is being paved and graded for a little bit better
accessibility. Stormwater wise, there wasn't really a whole lot of additional stormwater due to most of the site being existing. Was a little generated from the field house. All of that's being handled by the existing basin located down below, Winter Drive, with some minor modifications to the outlet structure. Drew Surjanic with Crabtree, he's got a little presentation that he did school board. Pretty much overviewing the architectural side of the building, so with that.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. Like Eric had said, my name is Drew Surjanic with Crabtree Roball and Associates, the architect of record for the district. And I'll just be covering a quick overview of the, particularly in the stadium, and kind of the district's real need for these updated facilities. So I'm assuming most people in the room are pretty familiar with the high school stadium. A lot of the facilities are in kind of disarray. They're failing. They're very small, outdated, undersized. The school district just recently, in the past couple of years, updated their field, so a brand new, beautiful turf field and bleachers. So really, the intent of this project is to bring the rest of the facilities up to par with the field and the bleachers. So as you can see, here's a quick plan of the entry sequence. So the stadium's kind of broken down into two portions. It's the upper portion kind of behind the grandstands, which is comprised of the main gate area, press box, and then the lower portion of the stadium, which would be the field house. So what you're seeing here is a floor plan, schematic floor plan of the entry sequence. It's now centralized opposed to currently the two entry gates are kind of flanking each side of the grandstand. So we really wanted to centralize that, simplify it, and create this nice entry sequence for spectators. So along with that, we have ticket booths flanking each side, kind of a grand staircase with ADA accessible ramp, code requirements, ticketing booths, and supplemental spaces such as restrooms, men and women's, family restrooms, and concession stand. The press box is also being demolished and rebuilt, and you'll kind of see the design of that in some renderings further in the presentation here. So again, those of you who are familiar with the stadium, there really is no entrance sequence. It's kind of just a chain link fence and a small little ticket booth. So we really wanted to dress this up, make it something that the district, the students, the athletes are proud of, and as well as the community. A lot of the architectural cues are coming from the existing high school. This will be same color brick. There's accents of metal panel that are reflected in the natatorium, the existing natatorium. And then we're introducing some darker elements just to kind of contrast those, just to give it a little more architectural appeal. So this would be descending down into the main gate area and kind of progressing through that. And as you can see, the press box is essentially this backdrop to that entry sequence. Just a couple more views kind of illustrating the intent of the design there. So, a lot of Williamsport signage, graphics, school pride. So then the lower portion of the building, or facility, I should say, is the field house. So again, this is just kind of taking what the district had and really expanding on it. There's a great need for this. The existing field house, very inadequate. So we'll be incorporating team locker rooms with home visitor, with a training facility, kind of centralizing that would be accessed from both locker rooms. Supplementary supporting spaces for the home team, such as drawing room, coaches' offices for both sides. And then kind of your public spaces down on the lower portion of the building here. So additional concession stands to serve the visitor side, men and women's restrooms, as well as a family restroom and the officials' locker rooms. Then on the second story, again, just more expansion of the programmatic needs that the district kind of voiced to us earlier on in the process. Team meeting room, which would be tiered seating that would be able to house an entire football team. The count that we had for that is about 85 plus coaches. As Eric mentioned earlier, golf simulator for the golf team, which was another need that the district had voiced to us. Some supplementary bathrooms, a multi-purpose room, just to kind of maximize the space in the project, since this is going to be a brand new building. You know, it could be used for multiple purposes. It could be designed for weight room, band practice room, just another meeting space. And then kind of this more public lobby space, which was added on towards the end of the design phase, with some outdoor seating for special events. And I don't know if Dr. Bowers, if you wanted to speak towards your kind of vision for that space and how it's kind of unique to this building and what the district provide.
Yeah, thanks, Drew. So Crabtree and Rohrball have been a partner with us for probably the last 8 or 9 years. They started to work with us doing a feasibility study. And what they learned was we had about $100 million worth of projects to do in the district. Because like a lot of big districts in Pennsylvania, over time, those buildings just get to the point where they have to be updated. So we really appreciate our partnership with Crabtree. They've really been able to maximize our usage for common sense dollars kind of thing. So when we brought this project to them and they actually toured the current facility, and if you've been at our stadium recently, you just have to walk into the bathroom to realize it hasn't been touched since the 70s. It's pretty bad. We host some pretty big events, like the Drum and Bugle Corps, for example, which is a nationally known event. We have people from all over the place come to that facility, and it's kind of embarrassing, to be honest with you, when they walk into the bathroom. I like to hold my breath. What are they going to say when they come out, right? So the need was definitely there. So as we started to scope the project and realize what we could do and what was necessary, we thought to our, if you're going to do it, do it right the first time and try to figure out how we can create these buildings to be multiple use. And that's really how that second floor was created. So the second floor idea, number one, we needed a place for our golf team to practice. So we had an idea. We've actually had a golf simulator budgeted and approved for over a year. Just didn't have a good spot to put it. So that second floor will house that. We always need a space in the district for large events, like a large instructional room or just an alumni room. Oftentimes our alum will come back for like homecoming, for example, and they'll ask to tour the high school, and we take them to the high school. And then they really would like to have an event to meet with their fellow classmates. So we really can't offer that in the district right now. That second floor space will be that kind of spot. You have that picture.
Yeah, so I was.
So where you see there, that we envision that upper floor to be the spot for that kind of events. Another event that we often do is for a home football game, for example, we'll do like veterans, where veterans get in free. We envision that to be, that particular night, veterans would be invited to be up there to that kind of, pretty unique experience. We also have a culinary program in our school district. So we actually train chefs in our school district, and they're job ready when they leave. We would like to add catering to that curriculum. So our kids will prepare food in the kitchen in the high school and then learn how to cater it offsite, meaning from the high school kitchen to that facility. And companies or whatever that wanted to have an event, they could actually have it there in that facility, and our kids could be part of that event and cater the event for them. We really envision all kinds of opportunity there. And as we talked it through with Crabtree, to add that second floor didn't add a tremendous amount of cost. And we have a tremendous amount of increased usage because of that concept. So this concept has developed. One thing I love about Crabtree is they get pretty far along and we're like, hey, what about this? And they're great about going back to the drawing board and coming up with some pretty good ideas. So we're super excited about this. We think this facility will be loved by the community. We'd like to partner with the chamber and outside organizations to bring events into Williamsport. I've often had conversations with Jason Feek, for example, about bringing people here and they're eating in our restaurants and they stay in our hotels and all those kind of things. And this stadium would allow us to do even more. So we're pretty excited about it. We're in a very good position in our school district to do some things like this. We just did a $3.1 million welding lab expansion to have kids career ready. We teach kids how to be welders. They leave and go right to the profession. That project just got done. Prior to that, we did a renovation project at Lyco Valley, which was, you remember that building as an open concept building? We really didn't have classrooms. It was just one big room. We were able to go in and really change that facility and turn that into a really modern educational facility. We were able to do that. We've done those projects over the last 4 years without raising taxes, because we've made some pretty smart financial decisions over the last 19 years. So we're in a good position to do this, and we're pretty excited about it.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Adam, I
Yeah,
do. I have a
Bonnie.
question. I hate to say how long ago when my kids were at school. I don't think a lot of things have been touched in decades at this point, have they?
That's correct. Yeah, these bathrooms, I wish we don't have.
Yeah, I
But-
could have.
So
included some
we
of the
did that
pictures.
for a recent presentation. We actually took pictures of the bathrooms and the so-called locker room facilities, the team room facilities, and it even surprised us because we're not in there every day, how bad it is. And it was really in the 70s when those facilities were really touched. And they've just, as all facilities, they have a lifespan, and those facilities are just past their useful life. And not only are they just in bad condition, they don't fit our needs anymore. We have a bigger need than what we currently have. You're right, it's been a long time since we touched this facility, other than the plates.
Exactly. The other thing I'd like to ask you, every time we've gone up there, parking has been a problem. Is there gonna, be any consideration to that? Or am I throwing something at you that you're not ready to discuss?
No, parking will definitely be improved. Would you say we're adding, especially the parking the lower level?
Yeah, so the parking on the lower level, right now, that's just really a gravel area that, the buses sometimes park at, and I don't know that anybody else really uses that besides practice
Right now.
people right now. So with that being paved, there will be a lot of additional parking down at that area that will mostly be for the accessible parking, and then maybe some of the team facilitators and away team side, but we're hoping that alleviates some. And then along with some of the parking improvements that have happened over the years up above and the resurfacing up above, doesn't add parking, but makes it a little bit smoother.
A little bit easier. I only have one more question. This is for Gary. Are you there, Gary?
Yes, I am.
Okay, we started out this meeting on finances.
There goes somebody's tire speaking. Fine.
Bonnie, you there? Bonnie, you muted yourself.
Oh, how did I do that? Okay, I'm sorry. Gary, like I said, we started out this meeting with finance. How are we doing with permits? This is gonna pull a lot of permits, isn't it?
We won't, yeah, I mean, as far as the permit fees and everything like that, that's still basically in the phase of going through that process. Once they finally design everything and submit it out and they go out to bids, then at that point, that's when the code department will get involved with both the architect as well as the school district as far as permitting.
Just throwing it out there. Thank you, Gary.
Been through this process many times
Yes.
with all the projects we've been doing with the districts.
So Drew had those pictures up there for a second. You could see,
Sorry.
anyone want to volunteer to use the bathroom in the upper corner? Appreciate it.
So
And then I didn't really mention anything about the tennis courts. If you've seen the tennis courts lately, they have been mandated to death. Dale Francis here with me, he handles all of our facilities, does a great job for us, but he came to me recently and said, Tim, I can't Band-Aid that again. There's just it has to be redone. There's no way we can Band-Aid it again. And then with the uptick in pickleball, it's now going to be in our phys ed curriculum. So we want that pickleball courts to that. But that improvement will be amazing there compared to what we have now. It's another great improvement.
Thank you, Bonnie.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions, Mr. Mackey?
Yeah, two. Project timeline. What are we looking at here? start complete?
We'll be going out to bid in about a month. And we hope to have the facilities open by next football season.
And I should probably know the answer to this. I have two kids at the district. Maybe not so much when school is in session, but over the summer months, what kind of access does the public have to some of these facilities, say the tennis courts, pickleball courts, asking for a friend?
Yeah, so yeah, that's one of the reasons we do it. So there will be community access. In fact, we're creating a lighting structure. So we talked about having a paint button, to be honest with you, where you could go up and actually, beat a machine basically. But the cost analysis didn't make sense because the LEDs are so efficient now, it didn't make sense to do that. So we are just gonna have the lights on every night to a certain time. I should say, they're gonna be capable of being on to a certain time. So let's say you go up at 8 o'clock and you wanna use the tennis courts and you want lights on, you would push a button and those lights would just come on for you. And then there's a certain time that they will automatically, you won't be able to push the button after that, like after 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. We had to talk about all those parameters. But they are absolutely gonna be available for community to use those.
Great. And is that all year round?
Yeah, as long as you get on them, yeah. If you wanna
Okay.
play pickleball in the winter,
Sure.
absolutely.
I've done it before. Maybe Mayor, we could talk about these lights. I mean, this sounds like a good concept for our parks, so maybe we could find out where they're getting these lights and get some of those put in our parks, maybe.
Yeah, Musco lighting.
Yeah. So, all right. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you all for the presentation, for the dialogue. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mrs. Franklin, item 10, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Item 11, demolition of 701 Wildwood Boulevard. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Mr. Nahar, the floor is yours again.
What I have before you is a request for, I believe it's 701 Wildwood Boulevard. It is in the commercial zoning district. It is a commercial building. Has sat vacant for several years. They are requesting it to be demoed. Obviously, the cost of doing any commercial things in there would need extensive remediation. And at this point in time, the owners have requested to do a commercial demolition. And I do have a representative here.
Any comments or questions?
Nobody historic lived there? Yeah.
I do have a question. Gary, this used to be a restaurant to begin with many years ago. And this has been vacant for how many years? It's been a long time. And it's a shame because you would think it would do fine with being on the corner like it is. So I'm happy to see that something is going to happen. Are there plans to put a structure on there, or are we just doing a parking lot?
I would have to defer to the owner who is here.
I take it that's DeSalvo?
Correct.
Hi, Bonnie.
Hi.
The structure is at the point where it needs to come down. The location of it on the corner and the lack of adequate parking and the ability to add any parking kind of makes it moot at this point to be able to do anything further with it. The location was good for us and it allowed us to grow, which we are now down on 4th Street. That's where DeSalvo's restaurant actually started, which was on the corner of High and Wildwood. So it served us well. We reopened it 5 years after we had moved the restaurant down to 4th Street and ran that for about 4 years as well. Again, with the parking issues and being on the corner, and there's not enough land to be able to redevelop that to put another structure back on it. So we're kind of at an impasse at this point.
I'm sorry to hear that because when it was a restaurant, we used to go there and it was just the atmosphere was really, I'm going to say homey. You know, you felt comfortable.
Well, we
It's
appreciate
sad
that.
because I never thought of that with the parking. I guess there is limited parking there. You know, you just look at it being on a corner, just make an assumption. And when I think about it, you're right, there isn't that much room for parking. But
Yeah,
thank
it
you.
was challenging, but thank you very much for the questions.
Any other comments or questions? All right. Here you see none, Mrs. Frank, item 11, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes,
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Item 12, demolition 537 Market Street. Is there a motion in a second?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Nar.
What we have again is a demo permit application request for 537 Market Street. It is the former Coders Cleaners. They did have a fire there about a year and a half ago that substantially damaged the building. As far as to try to renovate it at this point in time, be too costly, and the owners are requesting to demo the building.
Thank you, Mr. Nar. Are there any comments or questions? Ms. Mealy?
The plan for this as well will simply be seeded, basically become a grassy lot for the moment.
As a requirement under the ordinance, if they do not have a land development plan ready to go within 6 months, it is required within 6 months to be grass and seeded.
Thanks, Gary.
I have a question. It's not a question. I really want to thank Joanne Coder for all the years her and her family have had a business in the city like that. And I know she was heartbroken with the fire. I mean, when you have a business like that and you're the sole owner, it's your baby, and what you've done to nurture that baby. So, I mean, it's been rough for her. It really has. But I think she'll come out of this and she'll be doing fine. And Joanne, thank you very much for what you've done for the community, you and your father.
We would all second that. We're grateful for you all. Any other comments or questions? All right, Mrs. Frank, on item 12, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes,
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Gary, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll jump back up to item 6, Mrs. Frank.
An ordinance transfer number 7 in first reading.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Ms. Livermore?
Good evening again. What you have before you tonight is transfer ordinance number 7 to transfer $21,000 from the Youngswood Park Improvement in Act 13 to the flood levy line item in Act 13 to pay a previous bill from GPI that a resolution was done in 2023 for levy flood stations. I think there was a pause in the actions there. We had there was no invoices or anything for an entire year. We removed it from the budget. The previous engineer had done this, so I guess GPI did do some more work and finish the project, and there was $21,000 left in the contract. So that's to put this money back into the budget to pay that bill.
Any comments or questions? Okay. Being seen none, Mrs. Frank, item 6, please.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
yes,
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Item 8, Mrs. Frank.
Resolution setting city council meetings for the year 2026.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second. There we go.
second,
All right. So this is setting the meetings for next year, trying to make sure we get all of the dates reserved. This aligns with our normal structure throughout the year, aligns with the one meeting in November that we've kind of instituted the past couple years. This also has a reorganization meeting, anticipating we're going to have at least one new council member following this election. And so aside from that, it's pretty standard. Hopefully there's no date conflictions. If there is, we'll work through them. So, Janice, thanks for putting this together and spearheading this. I appreciate it very much. So, any comments, questions?
I hate to say this, but I do, Adam. Looking at this resolution and realizing that we have to negotiate our time scheduling with trade and transit. It's and proving it out with the reorganization meeting that we have to move it down into Community Theater League. It's, you know, it's kind of disheartening when you realize that we don't have total control of our meetings anymore, that we're at the beck and call of their availability. And I think that's, you know, it just rubs you a little bit the wrong way. And that's all. I just wanted to make a statement.
Yeah, certainly. I understand. I appreciate it. Any other comments, questions? All right, here you see none. Mrs. Frank, item 8.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mrs. Capps,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Item 9, Mrs. Frank.
resolution authorizing the purchase of an anti-phase phishing testing and dark web monitoring solution with SaaS backup and recovery.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Mr. Black, good evening, sir.
Good evening, everyone. What this is a filter for the email to keep out phishing attacks. It will also allow us to set up testing so we can send out fake fishes to our employees and test them to see how they fall in, whether they fall for easy ones or hard ones, and give them remediation on it also afterwards. The big part on this is the dark web monitoring. It will take our email list and search rigorously day in and day out to see if our usernames and passwords show up anywhere out on the dark web, get us back to that information right away. So we can say, you know, you need to change your password now because it was found in these 13 spots. Another part of it is just backup and recovery of our exchange online. eForce can use it, our finance system, anything that we have cloud-based, we can back that up at an additional time other than what's already being done. It's from a company called Kaseya. We have a couple of other products from them. It comes in at $780.80 as a one-time or per month with a one-time install of $799. This will be coming out of my contracted services budget. I have enough in there for this year to cover this for the rest of this year, and then I have it budgeted in next year's contract, in next year's budget.
Any other comments or questions, Ms. Mealy?
So to be clear, you have about $3,000 in your contract services budget for this?
Roughly, yes.
Okay, so this will be increasing your contract services budget for next year by 7,000?
There's other things that are becoming at end of contract that are being replaced with lower cost items.
Okay, so there are sunsetting.
Yes.
software contracts, okay, that mean that we won't be increasing the budget, okay, that's good to know. Was a little nervous about that. And then, I guess my only other question is, explain to me how this. I guess, like, not that I pay any attention to it, but my cell phone right now probably has under my password app a list of about 50 passwords I use that are compromised that I need to replace, that anyway, provided maybe not exactly for free, but within the cost of generally doing business. How is this a different solution? Why is this necessary for the city versus something that's basically included in the software that we already use?
If you have your city email on your phone.
I do not. In fact, I don't use.
Scenario.
Okay.
If you have your city email on your phone and your phone gets compromised, that username and password is now out on the dark web. All the ones you have, all the ones concerning the city. They find it, they notify me, I lock it. You must change your password at that point.
Okay.
I can't do anything about your personal accounts.
Right.
But I can take care of mine.
Okay, so basically it gives you as an administrator power over the users.
On district listening.
Obviously, yeah, not in any personal.
Correctly,
Right.
correct. On city
Um,
assets, yes.
And that's the advantage over the information, the recommendations that we're all currently getting from our devices on.
Yeah, I mean, you get spammed that your password's compromised, click this link to take care of it, and you've just compromised yourself again.
So what this really does is it gives us the ability to essentially change behavior. Like you'll be able to send sample ones out, for example, and test if people take the bait and do it in a way that, hey, this is an example of what you should not do, for example.
Right.
And then, and to the other part of this is in the event that something like that does happen, you'll have the ability to have a heads up on it essentially.
Yes.
And be able to react accordingly.
And these are separate packages that are all combined together. One of the nice things about the dark web monitoring is for HR system securities. If it gets whacked into there, someone breaks into our HR system and downloads it, we can notify right away. Your social security number's out there, yours and yours and yours, because this was attacked. This is what we need to do to start protecting each other.
I have one. It was there. I had one further question for you, Chris, but now, of course, I've already forgotten. Oh, just could you at some point maybe give us a list of the software items that we are thinking are gonna sunset next year?
Sure.
And why they are? I'm just kind of
Yeah.
curious what we're sort of. We always see the approvals, but we never see the things that we don't renew. You know
Yes.
what I mean? So, and that might be helpful, I think, in terms of our picture of what software products we're using within
Definitely.
the IT department. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, hearing and seeing none. Mrs. Frank, item 8, please. Or I'm sorry, item 9, excuse me.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Item 13, except for filing Finance Committee meeting minutes from July 22nd, 2025. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Any comments, questions, changes to the minutes? Hearing seeing none. Mrs. Frank, item 13.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Item 14, announcements. Our next regularly scheduled city council meeting will be Thursday, October 2nd, 7 p.m. Train Transit 234 here. Upcoming meetings, Tuesday, September 23rd, 11:30 a.m. Redevelopment Authority. Tuesday, September 30th, 11:30 a.m. Public Safety, 1 p.m. Finance, 2:30 p.m. Public Works. All of those are as needed. 6:30 p.m. Historic Architectural Review Board. Wednesday, October 1st, Economic Revitalization as needed. Thursday, October 2nd, 7 p.m. City Council meeting. Before comments, I'll just announce we had an executive session on the 10th of September related to legal matters. Any comments from the public? Any comments from members of council? Any comments from the administration?
Just a brief one on the theme of the district's pickleball tennis courts. They've started work at Elm Park. So those courts will be closed until construction is completed, which will be pickleball and tennis courts, the resurfacing stuff there.
Do you know when construction will be completed? I know we're coming up with the winter, so it may be a moot point, but
Yeah, no, I was looking to see, I think it's, I don't know, probably end of October-ish, I would
Okay.
say. Yeah.
cool. Thank you very much. All right, I'll see anybody from the news media here. Motion and a second for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. See you in 2 weeks.